Broughan, please.
Ken Corla. Just to say at the outset that I support the Minister's amendment to the Act of 1994. I noticed, actually, Minister, I've been asking for a long time for you to address consolidation of road traffic, and I notice when you look at the 1994 Act on the Law Reform Commission that it appends, if you like, all the changes that have happened since 1994 on the different bills that have been passed since then. And if that is the case, therefore, is it not possible for you to proceed with perhaps asking the Law Reform Commission to do a full consolidation so that the sort of almost annual road traffic bills that we're asked to look at, we could get to a situation where all road traffic acts are in one convenient consolidated bill, as for example with the Companies Act and with other legislation. I think the point Deputy Fitzmaurice makes is a reasonable one. We do know that quite a few, in fact several thousands of drivers, continue to drive on a learner permit to repeat them, if you like. But there is a situation where obviously learners are entitled to a speedy test. I think that's a reasonable proposition, and it is something that the Minister should address and incorporate. I also agree with Deputy Healy-Rae in relation to driver education. I mean, when you do think about it, in your life, I suppose, purchasing a house and looking after your own household and homestead, and purchasing a vehicle and looking after that and driving it and so on. The two most important, perhaps, transactions that you have in your life, and it is reasonable to expect that the educational system should focus on that, and it should be an important part of certainly second-level education, because we have had a horrendous tragedy, as I mentioned to the Minister, in the Inishowen Peninsula, where a young teenager was killed driving a vehicle unaccompanied, and it just brings home to us, the necessity, that the urgent need to address the situation with, I suppose, people have referred in the past, like to joyriding and to people driving unaccompanied at a very young age. But that's a horrendous tragedy for the family and the district and the child himself. It brings home to us, this whole area. I think the Minister has set out a reasonable case why we should proceed with this, and it is interesting when you look at practice across the rest of the European Union. That in most countries, I suppose, the preparation for driving it's an educational process that you go through, and then you proceed to obtain your licence. But the main point, I suppose, again, is that we did in 2016, the 2016 Act, Minister, this House, I think Deputy Imelda Munster's an amendment in her name, we did try to legislate for this whole area, and it was in a bill that was signed by the President, passed and signed, as we did in fact on the rickshaw issue as well. And it seems incredible that we've had to go back over this ground at such length. And I know that the section in front of us, of course, in the 1994 Act, we're dealing with the detention of vehicles and given this additional power to An Garda Síochána in relation to unaccompanied drivers. But again, it does seem that we could have dealt with this more expeditiously, and that the Dáil tried to do this, in fact, in the 2016 bill. But at the end of the day, though, we are talking about, I think, yourself and the Minister for Justice given the fundamental figures of the tragic numbers of young people that have been killed and seriously injured in unaccompanied driving over the past 6 or 7 years. And it's an area, obviously, of road safety that we can address, and that I think in this amendment tonight and the final amendment that we should do so. And we've referred to it, of course. We've had, in most of the debates, we've had the attendance of Noel Clancy and his daughter and other relatives of victims of tragic road crashes. I think it would be fitting again that we listen to their pleas tonight, and all of those tens of thousands of families that have been affected by serious road crashes and fatalities, and that we would accept the Minister's amendment and approve it here tonight.
Deputy Broughan. Deputy